Whether you teach in an elementary school, middle school, or high school, traveling to where your students are practicing their differentiated learning activities during work time helps you observe their learning. It also gives you the opportunity to put our next three indicators in action. All teachers interact instructionally with students, explaining, checking, and giving feedback. All teachers interact managerially with students, reinforcing rules and procedures. All teachers interact socially with students, noticing and attending to an ill student, asking about the weekend, or inquiring about the family. Let's begin by taking a look at a few teachers who interact instructionally with their students during work time.
Good. Justify for me what is the key word that you know that means area. Cover. Excellent. Keep on going. You're doing a wonderful job. Which one are you working on? What definition are you trying to match?
I'm using, she just told me everything to do that we did last time.
Good.
Took her spot.
Okay. So you said an array is what? Go ahead and read it for me, please.
It's formed by arranging a set of objects into rows and columns.
Okay, a set of objects. What do they mean by a set of objects?
Like squares or X's or circles.
Squares or X's or circles. Where in the classroom do you see a picture of an array? Right here, good. And what do they use for their objects?
They use circles.
Circles, excellent. Keep on going, great job.
So you do 3 times all of these, then you subtract A from that.
Oh, A from what I did.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep, exactly. Yep, John.
One thing that we are really big on here in Norview is something that we call questioning strategies. We try to engage the students and not necessarily tell them the answer, but we try to probe them to pull the answer from them. So instead of me just saying, no, this is what it is, I want to see how much you actually know and actually show the students you really know the answer. Sometimes we just have to go a roundabout way of pulling it out of you.
It's good. It's going to help it maintain shape. So what helps your body maintain shape? Your what? Your bones. So what do we call your bones? Your skeleton.
So I try to make them think instead of just giving them some information and just having rote memory, them spitting it back at me, kind of probing around to see what they actually know.
The plant cell, or is this the plant cell? And how it has a cell wall. Excellent. So we know this is the plant cell. So we know that this one is going to go over here somewhere.
And that's what I tried to do at the different stations, giving them, it was the same, I had 2 different types of cards, but I actually had 4 or 5 different activities going on with those 2 cards, trying to help them, visualize it, not only visualize it, but remember what they, learned, see it, touch it, just kind of getting different ways of learning the same knowledge.
Not only does moving around the room during work time afford you the opportunity to interact with your students instructionally, it also facilitates positive classroom management, as our next indicator implies. All teachers interact managerially with students, reinforcing rules or procedures. Let's see how this is done as this teacher makes her way around her room during work time.
So what can you do this time instead of coloring to get started? You might want to label. Could you just lay color tiles on them as open and closed? At least to start, and then after you got them all laid out, go from there? Yeah. You might want to draw your boxes smaller so you get them done faster. Okay? Here, guys. You just finished. Okay, so now can you answer those 2 questions for me? That are not open. They're odd, except for number 2, right? Okay, what else are they besides odd? They're prime. Why do you think those would be prime? Okay, and did we ever count by ones in the rules? No. So, can you use that information to answer the first question? Where it asks what's different about the ones that are not open. Okay, make sure you're answering in complete sentences, okay? Yes, please. Okay, both questions, both answers.
finally, we'll move into the social interactions that can occur during work time. All teachers interact socially with their students. We'll let these clips speak for themselves.
Students really love if you know something about them and you ask and check and see how things are going, with their personal lives. So that's one thing that I knew, that student is on the football team. He loves football, and that's something that I knew it would be meaningful to him because it's his jersey number and he wanted it noticed because they're wearing them all day today. So to say, oh, that's maybe one you could use for your homework tonight, number 62, then he smiled, and at the end of the day he said, I'm going to use 62 as one of mine. Is that okay? So again, just, little ways you can reach out and grab your students' interest, because I think the more you're involved in their lives, the more they're ready to work for you.
It's important for the children when they come to school every day for you to notice when they're not feeling well, for you to notice if they're having a bad day, for you to notice if they're having an off day, if they're just not themselves. That lets them know that you truly realize that they're an individual, they're not just a number in your classroom.
Hibernation, migration, and estivation, because this is what we're going to talk about today. Are you okay? Do you need to go get a sip of water? Okay, I hear you coughing.
It makes you feel important. It makes me feel important here at my job. It makes anyone feel important. So why should we treat them any differently than we would want to be treated? So that's how I try to treat my children every day. The little boy that you saw coughing, he's not feeling well. So why wouldn't I notice, that he's not feeling well today and try to reassure him that I know he's not feeling well. Why don't you go get a sip of water and regroup and come back and, we'll pick up where we left off. It's such a simple thing to do, and just to reassure him that I do understand, and, we'll try to make it through the day.
I feel like it's very important. The only way I can get my students' trust is by building a relationship with them and taking an interest in their outside activities. The student hurt his arm in a football game, and he hurt his right hand, so that really changes the way that I do instruction in the classroom. We have someone who writes his things for him in class, like someone did his Rate Yourself activity for him. He tells them what they need to do. I feel like the kids understand me a little bit better because I do share things about myself with them. Like if I had broken my arm, I would have said when I broke my arm it really hurt. But previously I had told him my brother broke his ankle, and then when he went to the orthopedist they had to reset it, so kind of prepare yourself. So I ask them questions when I find out special things that happened, or if they did well in another teacher's class, I make sure I acknowledge them in front of the entire class, because it really does develop the relationship that you need to be successful in the classroom.
Although we are focusing on the interactions between you and your students during work time, we'd like to share with you 2 more clips that speak in general to building relationships with your students.
I think it's important to build relationships with the kids. I think, honestly, if I have had any success teaching, it's because I've built those relationships first. We have a model at Norview. It's capturing their hearts before you capture their heads. And especially with urban kids, I think it's super effective to get to know them so that they care about you and you care about them, and then you can get them to care about the content. Every day I do good times. They do the warm-up, the timer goes off, and then I take a few suggestions like you saw, where we just talk about one thing that's good, and actually started out as good things, but then it turned into the JJ Good Times, and so that's why we have that Good Times song. And it's just a nice way for me to just see what's good in their life, so I can get to know them, because it's such a big class, and I do greet them at the door, and I do say good morning, but I don't really get to find out how they really are, and so I can get excited with them and they feel like I'm a part of their life, and it's just they get excited to share, and they're just a lot like puppies. They're just they just so love attention. They love to be excited, and they love somebody to be excited for them, and it's fun to see a different side of them, because I just see them in English, and it's I forget that they have lives. Like when I teach general English, it's I forget the kids are good in other subjects or in other areas because they're so not good in English, bless their hearts. And so it's nice to know that, okay, so you've got it happening on the football team. I'm glad to know that about you, because otherwise I forget. See, it's just one-sided. It's, they have to relate. They just do. They need to see me as a person, and, it's not like it was when we were in school, where, you know, my teachers never shared anything. If I were to walk into the classroom and not share a thing, the kids would shut down. They are personally offended, I think, if we don't share. And I think they just want somebody to connect with. They just want a relationship. They want someone to care about, and they want that person to care about them in return. And I think it's just so infinitely important, and it's revolutionized the way I have run my classroom. It just has completely changed my, I don't have classroom management issues like I used to. It's just about building relationships. It just is, and it combats, I don't have to deal with the negativity anymore. I just don't, because when you build relationships, you get a positive classroom climate, and it just makes life easier to teach. Do I have bad days? Heck yes. Do they absolutely get on my nerves some days? Yes, but at the end, it's like I love them, and they become more like, okay, you're driving me absolutely nuts, but I hurt you. Just let me just walk to the side of the room, let me get myself together, and, you know, but you're good. Love you, but you're just driving me nutso. And so then I don't know, it makes my job easier, honestly.
Well, I think it's really important to be able to relate to my kids. I heard a speaker say one time that you can teach anyone anything as long as you have their attention. And one way that I try and grab my students' attention is by bringing something into my content that's relevant to them in a way that they can relate to it, that they feel like they're a part of it, so that when I introduce the concept, I have their attention. What I'd love to do today is I'd love to hear just how everybody's doing. So let's have some good times. Whatever happened to you this past couple days, this past weekend. Good times was something that was introduced to me just as a way of making my role as a teacher more personable for each individual student. So what I do with Good Times is I want to know where my students are at, not only in the classroom, but what's going on with them outside of school. And it's just a quick way every week for me to get an idea of where they are, so that the next week, if it was something exciting that's continuous, I can keep asking them about it. And it's just it's a way for them to see that I'm not just standing in front of the classroom, but I want to be involved in their lives.